Undoubtedly, one of the most fundamental debates in the philosophy of religion is the tension between theists, who believe in the existence of God, and atheists, who believe that God does not exist. However, not everyone who studies the question of God's existence must belong to either of these two sides. The term agnosticism, coined by the biologist Thomas Henry Huxley in 1869, opened a new door and offered a completely different position. In the previous section, I described deism as a belief system that challenges the authority of certain religious structures. But this challenge is not limited to deism alone. Agnosticism, which is rising even faster today than atheism, may challenge these fears even more deeply. What is agnosticism? Agnosticism is a belief, stance, or method that has become widespread in the philosophy of religion over the past century and a half. It has been adopted quickly by many people. In popular culture, it is often described as the position of those who neither accept nor reject the existence of God. However, in a more technical and philosophical sense, agnosticism argues that the human mind is not capable of possessing sufficient rational grounds to justify either the existence or the non existence of God. People who consider God's nature to be unknowable, who believe that human beings cannot reach such knowledge through their subjective experiences, and who also argue that God's absence cannot be proven, are called agnostics. The philosophy of agnosticism. Agnosticism maintains that the nature and power of God lie far beyond the grasp of the limited human mind, and that it is impossible to attain absolute or certain knowledge about whether God exists. This viewpoint is an extension of skepticism. One of the fundamental principles of quantum physics, the uncertainty principle, states that it is impossible to observe time, matter, and energy exactly as they are. In a field where even physics falls short, understanding the existence of a God who is metaphysical, beyond the physical world, becomes even more impossible. An agnostic would say, if we are to claim that God exists, we must have very strong reasons to say, yes, that is God. The historian Bertrand Russell, who identified as agnostic in the philosophical sense, once said, I do not want to say dogmatically that there is no God. What I want to say is that we do not know whether he exists. According to agnostics, this is a more rational approach than both theism and atheism. Agnostics make no definitive claims and do not participate in attempts to prove or disprove God's existence. Statements like, God exists, or there is no God, are, in their eyes, strong claims that lack sufficient evidence. Before considering either view, agnostics prefer to ask what God even means. They also argue that God cannot be meaningfully discussed through the limited languages spoken by humans, and that God is not a simple being that can be defined with ordinary vocabulary. Morality in agnosticism. The moral perspective of agnostics parallels the rational morality found in deism. While many religious thinkers claim that morality can only be defined by religious institutions, deists argue that reason alone is enough to be good, honest, virtuous, just, and compassionate. The main difference is that deists believe moral reasoning can lead a person to God, while agnostics do not focus on the result at all, since they consider God's existence unknowable. Since they do not find the claims of religions verifiable, especially regarding God and the afterlife, agnostics see membership in any religion as unnecessary. Types of agnosticism. There is no single perspective within agnosticism. Weak agnosticism. the view that the existence or non-existence of God is unknown for now, but not necessarily unknowable. Agnostic theism, the belief that a God exists, but that this cannot currently be rationally demonstrated. Strong agnosticism, the belief that certainty about God's existence or non-existence is impossible due to human limitations. Agnostic atheism, the view that one does not believe in a creator, but also does not claim to prove God's non-existence. Pragmatic agnosticism, apatheism, the belief that the question of God's existence is irrelevant and has no practical impact on life. Why do people become agnostic? People become agnostic because they find the arguments of both theists and atheists insufficient. A person who becomes agnostic has researched, reflected, and tried to understand the idea of God, but has not found a convincing answer. Yet, like atheists, they cannot confidently declare that God does not exist because they recognize the limits of human reasoning. Many people, especially younger generations, begin to distance themselves from institutional religion when they witness hypocrisy, corruption, abuse, favoritism, or immorality among religious authorities. This leads them to rethink the concept of God, often using the problem of evil as their starting point. Questioning is natural and necessary. Human beings have the capacity to think, and they are expected to use it. The concern is that some individuals abandon religion not through thoughtful inquiry, but as a reaction to negative experiences with religious institutions. One might ask, is it wise to discard something entirely because of the faults of those who represent it? Even if a religious institution functions perfectly, if its values are hidden or not demonstrated clearly, its perfection becomes meaningless. As with any organization that departs from merit, religious institutions inevitably face criticism. Agnostic philosophers. The ancient Greek philosopher Protagoras said, "Man is the measure of all things, that things that exist are, and things that do not exist are not." Although Huxley introduced the term agnostic, many thinkers trace the idea back to ancient philosophy and consider Protagoras the first agnostic. Omar Khayyam questioned concepts of heaven and hell with the words, "Who has seen them? Who has gone there and returned?" Among modern thinkers, Anthony Kenny is one of the most notable figures who has openly identified as agnostic. Figures such as Immanuel Kant, Samuel Beckett, Turgenev, Borges, Gorky, Sadiq Hidayat, Marcel Proust, John Steinbeck, and Stendhal are also frequently associated with agnostic thought. Conclusion. Agnosticism, still growing within the philosophy of religion, argues that humanity is currently incapable of understanding God, yet it remains hopeful. Otherwise, it would be indistinguishable from atheism. If people can express their beliefs freely, society is healthy. But if individuals must hide their thoughts or are labeled as dangerous or immoral because of what they believe, there is a clear issue of freedom. We have explored the worldview of deists previously. In this section, we examined agnosticism. Before moving on to the philosophy of theism, we will take one last look at atheism. See you in the next episode. Take care.